Hello, my name is Tom Golden, State Representative from the City of Lowell and the Town of Chelmsford. I want to thank you and welcome you right now to my podcast, where we'll be discussing casual conversations about relevant topics throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Today, I have the privilege and the honor to be speaking with Ms. Brooke Thomson, who is the Executive Vice President, Brooke, of Government Affairs for the Associated Industries of Massachusetts. Welcome, Brooke, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having me. Yes, it's quite a mouthful, but I'm thrilled to be over here at AIM running our Government Affairs Department.
I appreciate that, Brooke. And tell us a little bit about yourself, where you've been, what you've been doing, how you got into this space, and a little bit about what AIM does.
Certainly. I've been at AIM for a little over a year now. And if anyone had told me when I started last September that my first year would be filled with a global pandemic and a resulting economic recession, I would have called them crazy. I probably also might have reconsidered taking the position, but that's just joking. In all seriousness, what we do at AIM, we are the largest business trade association in the state. We don't focus on one specific region or one specific industry. We represent all industries throughout the Commonwealth. We say that we cover everything and everyone from the Berkshires to Boston. We have about 3,500 members. Some are very, very small, mom and pop shops, up to some of the most noticeable businesses and corporations that you've heard of. And we really try to operate as a megaphone for our members. They're busy running businesses. They're busy keeping the lights on. And what our role is to, reach out to them, interact with them, find out what issues are of importance to them, and then help make sure that their voices are heard with policymakers, both at the state and at the federal level.
I mean, the point that you bring up about the megaphone, that is excellent. I mean, because your team is very well respected up on Beacon Hill, and you come from so many different backgrounds, all of you. What was your background to finally get to AIM?
Well, I appreciate that. I came from a little company called AT&T that you may have heard of before I came over to AIM, small little company where I ran government affairs for both Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Prior to that, I was over at the State Attorney General's office, and then I spent about 4 years over in the Massachusetts legislature. So I've been in this space for a while. And, to your point, Mr. Chairman, it really is not the role of AIM to, as an organization ourselves, take on any policy initiatives. What we're really here to be is a facilitator, both for our members, but also for policymakers like yourself. As you guys are grappling with really important issues and bills, we want to provide the opportunity for you to speak to businesses and to hear input from how those folks may feel about certain issues or just how they're doing on a daily basis.
Well, I can tell you that many of your policy experts are on speed dial with me. AIM does such a great job. And anyone listening today, how could they learn more about AIM if they would like to?
Absolutely. So they can feel free to log on to our website at aimnet.org. They can reach out to anyone on my team, the Government Affairs team, which they can find on our website. They can also reach out to anyone in membership. And you can check us out on social media as well. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook.
Excellent. Well, Brooke, thank you for that intro. And what we are trying to do during this time frame is we're really trying to keep it tight. We'd like to talk about today something that's so important. One of the major pieces that we do in the legislature is our annual budget. And obviously the annual budget has seen a little bit of a slip. It normally is passed in and around the last weeks of June. We've seen it go into July a few times. But right now, we're still working extremely hard trying to get that budget ready because of this pandemic that you had mentioned earlier. It's something that I think we're all eagerly awaiting. And I know that Chairman Michaelwitz and the House conferees are working hard with the Senate to try to wrap that up. You over at AIM, you folks have a lot of interest in what goes on in the budget to help some of your members or just really help the economy of the Commonwealth as a whole. What are some of those pieces in the budget that you could talk about?
Sure. And I want to start by commending both you and your colleagues for all the incredible work over these last several months on the budget. As you mentioned, it's usually something where as we enter a fiscal year, months in advance, you and your colleagues have issues and the budget wrapped up. But again, we're in unprecedented times. And so, what we've really seen is in the fall, a clash of three budgets, right? A closeout budget for fiscal year 20, what the legislature is taking on right now, which is fiscal year 21 in conference committee. And then, we're a couple of weeks away from at least the administration releasing their FY22 budget. Add on top of that, what I sort of mentioned at the outset and that you just addressed, Mr. Chairman, we, as a result of a public health crisis, the state reasonably had to take some actions to curtail impacts on the economy. As a result, revenues or money paid to the state that we use to balance budgets was lower than anticipated, and no one could have foreseen everything that played out. And so it's a very unprecedented situation about how much money is available, what needs need to be met in the Commonwealth for residents, for businesses, for nonprofits, and how we're going to tackle that. At AIM, as you mentioned, we care about this tremendously, not just on behalf of our member companies, but because, our goal is really when the Commonwealth does well, when we are a Commonwealth, it benefits everyone. And so we have been advocating throughout this pandemic on behalf of our members to try to strike that balance. And again, we're really appreciated for all the work you've done on this to try to balance, doing what we need for public health, but also keeping the economy going. From the budget perspective, there's several important things in this budget that we are looking at. There's a lot of help for small businesses, both in the budget that's pending in conference, but also in the economic development bill that's in conference. A lot of our small businesses, as you know, have been hurt. The statistic that I heard last week is, I believe that 32%, that small businesses, the number that are open are down by 37% in the state. That means 37% of small businesses that were around before the pandemic have gone away. So we know that while the economic downturn has hurt everyone, it's particularly hurt our small businesses. And there's a lot of important relief in that budget that we think needs to get out there, especially since we can't seem to get movement from the federal government on an additional stimulus.
We're really hoping that that's going to change, obviously, in 2021. I mean, we're trying to continue to push workforce training, mass manufacturing extension, which I know you folks have been very, very interested in. But really, it's the small businesses. It sounds kind of cliche-ish, and people say it all the time. They're the backbone of our communities. I mean, I can tell you that I work with the baseball leagues and a junior football league. And every time you show up and they have a pamphlet, it's always that mom and pop shop that is, donating $100, $200, $300,000 to make sure that, in the city of Lowell and the town of Chelmsford, that the young children have a place to play and a uniform and a hat and some camaraderie. So, some of the stuff that's going on from our end, it really melds nicely with your message of making sure that it is a commonwealth. And, some of the things like workforce training, mass manufacturing extension, just to name a few. Are there any others with the maybe one-stop career centers and things like that?
Technical training and career programs, all of these things, the workforce training program funding at $25 million, those are all important. And I think it's important to highlight, especially right now when we're seeing this impact on the economy, keeping those workforce training programs, right? Keeping those manufacturing training programs going so that we have a workforce when we get the economy back on track that's ready to go day one and get Massachusetts back on track. That's going to be critical to our success.
So talking about, you had originally said the 37%, that is sad because those folks are people we know. And if those businesses are no longer available, I can't even begin to think how many businesses haven't been started. I mean, the United States has always been found on that entrepreneurship, especially here in Massachusetts, with everybody trying to do something on their own and make their own money and make their own way. Now, AIM, I believe, has done a study or started to ask some of your folks what is going on. And once again, I have to reiterate this. because it's so important, because as policymakers, we reach out to folks like you because you call the balls and strikes, you're right down the middle, hearing from what your businesses are saying. Could you share a little bit with us on what they're thinking and percentage what they're talking about, what their concerns are?
Sure. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. The entire reason we put this survey into the field in September was to provide data to you and other policymakers. We can say as a representative organization for businesses that businesses are hurting, but what does that mean, right? We wanted to demonstrate through data what that actually meant. And so our survey had over 230 respondents. 67% said sales were lower in the pandemic, so in the 9 months of the pandemic, than they were pre-pandemic. 58% had seen impacts to their workforce because of childcare issues, whether that be reduced seats for daycare, whether that be the fact that parents are having to educate their children at home while working at the same time, and the demands that places. I will say some of the top concerns were rising costs and operating expenses, a second shutdown or a second surge, which arguably we could be facing given where some of the numbers are right now, increased taxes and fees, and then hiring and staffing shortages. And then the other one I would be remiss if I didn't mention is all of the issues around unemployment insurance. We're going into 2021 with a huge deficit in our unemployment trust fund.
Correct.
And the fact is that employers want to provide that unemployment insurance right now. We need to, as people need to go out to quarantine, or if they're sick. We don't want those people in the workforce. Our members are very clear on that. But at the same time, these are costs that are growing that are going to make it really hard for businesses to stay sustainable and to keep going.
Well, the interesting thing is, prior to the pandemic, if you want to say prior to March, our unemployment insurance unemployment was down well below 5% at the time. It seems so long ago. Our rainy day account was bursting. We were continuing to try to push more into it. I know that this budget right now is we're going to have approximately, I believe, 1.5 billion. Of course, that's a fluid number. We're still working on that. But our rainy day account has 2 billion. But thinking about pre-pandemic, I mean, talk about the utopia in the business world and how things were going so well. It's sad to hear that, once again, 67%, the number that you just referenced, and that's, you hear these numbers, and these are real jobs, these are real people, and then the challenges that people are having with daycare. You, as a mom with 2 children, I believe, is that right? Yeah. I have 2 daughters, and at home, not at home, trying to get to school, and trying to keep your daily life going. You're feeling the stresses that everybody else is feeling with trying to keep kids occupied in school, out of school, on Zoom meetings and things of that nature. Has AIM looked at any of that? How is that damaging our economy, or how is that challenging, I should say, our economy?
That's a great question, Mr. Chairman. And something that really stood out for us is in some of the other surveys that have been done on this issue, 60% of Massachusetts respondents said they're considering moving their businesses out of state as a result of this pandemic and all of these issues. That is something that's alarming. You can say that one of the benefits, but also one of the drawbacks of what we've learned about how we keep going during this pandemic is the ability for us to all do some of our work remotely. Not everyone can, but some people can. And to the extent some of these businesses have realized they can do that successfully, they're now toying with, do I have to have my principal place of operation in Massachusetts? Do I have to have my employees in Massachusetts? Can they work remotely and live somewhere else? That has major implications from a tax perspective about what revenue we can generate both locally. You don't want businesses moving out of Chelmsford and Lowell. We don't want businesses moving out of Massachusetts to a state that's perhaps more favorable. So we really have to look at how are we going to adapt to deal with some of these issues, to make sure that we don't lose our competitive edge, that we keep a good workforce, a talented workforce. If folks know that they can work remotely from a state with, maybe from Florida,
Sure.
That's Massachusetts. And so I think what we're all going to have to do is collectively, the business community and policymakers, work to figure out how we take what we've learned and make it positive and not a negative.
Well, I mean, you think about the commercial real estate, and your employees being, let's face it, employees have expanded. Gone is the day of working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, showing up, punching the time clock. I mean, a lot of people talk about how they're working longer hours at home. They may not be commuting, which some people love and some people don't like at all. But gone are the days when once you punch out, it's all over. People are really truly they're really truly bringing their work home with them now. But you bring a very interesting point. Could someone do it from a warmer climate? Could someone do it from another country if they so desired? That's some of the major concerns that I have through the downtowns. Every city in town has a downtown or the hub of activity. And one of my fears is that that could go away because of what you discussed. Is brick and mortar necessary? Does there have to be a seat for everybody, or can people start to share office space because Brooke's coming in Mondays and Thursdays and Tom comes in Tuesdays and Wednesdays? So it's a very interesting time. Obviously, there's been so many companies on the internet or on the web. They've expanded or exploded with activity. So is AIM looking at that? As far as interconnectivity and things of that nature, e-commerce, if you would, is that something that you folks are still actively looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it's important, to your point, instead of this old notion of working from home, I've heard it called living from work. And that's what we're doing now.
Sure.
But, I think we do have to adapt. I think we can look at a lot of our members at AIM, how they've pivoted really well through this crisis. Members in your district who have, they took the fact that maybe they were shut down for ordinary operations, but they pivoted to making PPE, right? They were primarily, as you said, brick and mortar, where they relied on foot traffic, but they've started to develop really a virtual presence, a social media platform. I think what we're trying to do and what we're trying to work with our members on and what we're thrilled to partner with the legislature on is finding ways to not make this a bad story, but to, again, find opportunities. Is it going to work for every business and every industry? Unfortunately, it's not. And for those folks, they need relief and we need to figure out how we can help them. But for some, I think they can adapt, and it provides a real opportunity from a workforce training again, and a career readiness perspective. How are we doing this? I think it's going to take resources, and that's a tough thing in these times.
That's
when
right.
We're strained. But to your point again, Mr. Chairman, it's where we need the federal government to step in and provide some of this much needed financial support so we can do these things and help our businesses adapt.
Well, I think we're all very hopeful that January of 2021 will bring a program or a bailout or any type of additional monies. I know I'm bullish on it. I hope it happens even sooner, to be quite frank with you, because I know that's going to help, the House conferees and the Senate conferees really, get through the budget that we're trying to put on the table right now. I want to say thank you very, very much, Brooke, for joining us here on just a casual conversation about what's happening around the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And one more time, it's aimnet.org in case anyone's interested in the Associated Industries of Massachusetts. And ladies and gentlemen, I just once again want to thank Brooke Thomson, who is the Executive Vice President of Government Affairs for the Associated Industries of Massachusetts. Thank you all very much. Once again, my name is Tom Golden, State Representative from the City of Lowell and the town of Chelmsford, and appreciate you tuning in. Have a great day.